When you want a reminder of who Jesus is, just look at your hands. Honor. Jesus has divine honor. You know, the honor that's given to Jesus is only reserved for God. The worship that is given to God in Revelation 4 is poured out on Jesus in Revelation 5. On numerous occasions, the disciples would worship Jesus. John 9 and verse 38, there's a man who says, "Lord, I believe," and he worshiped him. In Luke 24:52, the disciples would worship him and return to Jerusalem with great joy after the resurrection. In Matthew 14 and verse 33, those who were on the boat whom Jesus had just saved would say, "Truly you are the Son of God," and worship him. Jesus has divine honor. He also has, looking at our hands, divine attributes. Hebrews 1 and verse 3 would say, "He is the radiance of the glory of God and the exact imprint of his nature, and upholds the universe by the word of his power. And after making purification for sins, he sat down at the right hand of the Majesty on high." That idea of being the exact imprint of his nature. Everything that makes God God, Jesus has and is. Jesus has divine attributes. Divine honor, divine attributes. Let's talk about the names of Jesus, the divine names of Jesus. You know, in Isaiah 9 and verse 6, we read, "For unto us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be upon his shoulder. And his name will be called Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace." But that's not just the association with Jesus that we have concerning his names and his names being divine. In Matthew chapter 1 and verse 22, we read, "All of this took place concerning Jesus and his birth. All of this took place to fulfill what the Lord had spoken by the prophet. Behold, a virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel," which means God with us. In Philippians 2 and verse 9, God gives Jesus, after highly exalting him, he gives him the name that is above every name. It's the name of God. Jesus has divine honor, divine attributes, divine names. He also has divine deeds. He does divine deeds. Nicodemus would come to Jesus by night in John chapter 3 and tell him that no man can do what Jesus is doing unless God is with him. But more than that, we can read like in Luke chapter 5 and verse 24, Jesus himself would say, "But that you may know that the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins, he said to the man who was paralyzed, I say to you, rise up, pick up your bed, and go home." The man who'd been paralyzed was able to get up, take up his bed, and go home. The miraculous deed that Jesus did confirmed the far more necessary spiritual deed, that he forgave sin, something that only God can do. And finally, looking at your hands, you think about the divine honor, the divine attributes, the divine names, the divine deeds. Consider the divine seat. We've already read in Hebrews chapter 1 that Jesus is seated at the right hand of God. You know, that's spoken in Acts chapter 2 and verse 33, that he's been exalted to the right hand of God. In Acts 5:31, we see that God exalted him to his right hand. Colossians 3 encourages us to seek the things that are above, where Christ is seated at the right hand of God. And again in Hebrews, Jesus offered for one time a single sacrifice for sins. And Hebrews 10 and verse 12 says that, and then it finishes, "Then he sat down at the right hand of God." In Hebrews 12 and verse 2, we see that Jesus is the founder and perfecter, the author and the finisher of our faith. and how he endured the cross, despising the shame because of the joy that was before him. And now he is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. Jesus is divine. You can look at your hands and you can remember who Jesus is. You can think about what he has done for you because he loves you. And we do too. Have a blessed day.
If you would like more information, or if you'd like to participate in our Bible studies and worship services, we would love to have you come join us at the Northeast Church of Christ in Albuquerque, New Mexico.